giving RSGB members the chance to find out more about the candidates for the RSGB Board Director elections for 2023. And we're doing that by having a chat with each of them. And that gives them the opportunity to tell you a bit about themselves and, of course, you to find out more about them before you cast your vote. So we're going to meet now Len Paget. Call sign is Golf Mike Zero Oscar November X-ray. Hello, Len.
Good evening. Hello, Bob.
Now, just to reassure you that all the candidates are being asked the same questions, and I think this first one is a really interesting one. Tell us about how you got into amateur radio and which aspects of it you enjoy the most.
I got into amateur radio through shortwave listening of broadcast stations as a teenager while still at school. And we had a little kind of radio club at the local YMCA. And the caretaker had mentioned that the amateur radio club also met at the YMCA on Sunday night and suggested that that might be something I'd be interested in. So we went to the club, we were made most welcome. And that started my transition from shortwave listening to Radio Netherlands and the rest of it into amateur radio. It took a few years to get the license, but that's where it started.
And which aspects do you enjoy, Len? What's the thing that really floats your boat in amateur radio?
The thing that I particularly take an interest in is like sort of home brewing. I quite like making bits and pieces, repurposing equipment for other uses, particularly like things like Arduinos. On the air, I describe myself as a lazy DXer. I'll take it if it's going. I've got my DXCC. But I won't go over the top to try and get that extra ultra rare country if there's a kilowatt scrum on there. I'll take my time and I'll wait it. If I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. Majority of the times I would consider myself a rad tutor. I like to have a good old chat rather than anything else, and it's something that's getting harder and harder to get on HF. VHF, thankfully, around here is quite active, and we managed to get our fix of rad tutoring.
Why have you decided to stand as a candidate then, Len? And what do you think you could bring to the role of board director?
I've been an RSGB volunteer since I think it was 2004 or thereabouts, a long, long time ago. During that time, I have been the deputy regional manager, planning chair, company secretary, and latterly director. Been little breaks in it, as you know, that you're fixed to 2 terms of 6 years, but we had one year off as company secretary, which kept our hand in. And why I'm standing for re-election, I've got a couple of projects going that I would like to see to the end. We have been in conversation with Ofcom in particular to try and make complaining more effective. We complain about Ofcom not taking an interest in amateur radio jamming and abuse, etc. But when we did a Freedom of Information Act inquiry to Ofcom, they showed it was only 4 complaints in about as many years. When I did an independent poll of the amateur radio community via social media, it showed a similar amount. So obviously they're complaining somewhere, but not the right place. So we had a wee chat with them last year, and we've agreed to try and tidy up how that we can actually complain more effectively, and for Ofcom to be honest about what they will not take any action on. Unfortunately, the days of the old radio communication agency are gone, for better or worse, and they have a more relaxed attitude to industrial language, for instance, on the air. But there's certain things they will definitely act on. And as I said, we just want to be open and clear exactly what they want to do. I reckon I'm about halfway through that task, and that's one of the tasks that I want to try and do. We're also having a lot of look at the governance of the RSGB. I mean, the likes of this election we're having just now is one of the few that's been contested. So we want to try and find a way of encouraging people to stand for election. And where there is a non-contested election, still find a way for members to express their views on the candidate. So that's another project I'd like to try and finish off.
Now, I know you'll certainly identify with all the volunteers that work for the Society, and there's a wide range of volunteers across the Society. They deliver very important services. How would you, as a director, work with them?
The RSGB is nothing without its volunteers. We do have a small headquarters team who are employed, but the vast majority of services and support is provided by the volunteers themselves. We have tried various ways in the past to try and get them more involved in the decision-making process. The volunteer leadership team was one avenue we did it. It wasn't as successful. We need to find other ways to try and get volunteers consulted on where we want to go, so it's not just seen as the board's decision that we go down a particular direction. And I say we need to find a more effective way to do that. We're having a look at various options on that, and they say that's another one for the new board to consider.
One thing that we're all aware of is the huge impact that COVID had on the whole world, and it certainly changed the landscape of amateur radio, and clubs and radio amateurs couldn't meet, exams moved online. How do you see the landscape now, Len? Is it changed forever? And are people adapting to different ways of enjoying amateur radio? How are the clubs faring, do you think?
Clubs are particularly finding the strain post-COVID. I'm a member of 2 clubs in this area, and fortunately these clubs are surviving and to an extent thriving. But we do get various information from other clubs that are struggling. But to be honest, some of these clubs were struggling pre-COVID, and COVID has just accelerated their demise. Now, we have a regional team at the moment, which is looking at various ways that members can interact locally. They can provide additional support to clubs. I mean, one of the things that COVID has brought about is things like this, Zoom, whereby you can have a club bring in a remote speaker, maybe even an international speaker, to provide a presentation remotely to the club. My own club, the Kilmarnock Loud Amateur Radio Club, works hybrid in that majority of people meet at the clubhouse, and some others come in, at other times that remotely, etc. So that's one of these things that gives us an opportunity to expand.
And do you think, or what do you think the RSGB can do to support the clubs in sort of adapting to this new situation?
Well, I mean, the things that we can do is provide the likes of list of speakers for presentation to try and find, a structure to the clubs, those clubs who want that kind of meeting. I mean, clubs, they do vary in how that should. Some are very much a social side of things. They go and, they meet with their friends and colleagues and things like that. They have boasting rights about how much they're DX, and that is one form of club, and very enjoyable for that. But to say they're fiercely independent, some of them take exception to the regional team, having any sort of involvement to them. And if they do, that's fine, great, go on with it. Others, want to have a fuller involvement in the promotion of amateur radio, the likes of exams, going out to the community to trying to promote amateur radio. And so the regional team that I used to look after are very keen to try and support clubs, get their name out there, tell the wider world what amateur radio is all about, and in particular what they do locally in their part of the world, and is of interest to others who have a potential interest in amateur radio.
Amateur radio, now this is something that's been discussed quite a lot, I think, in recent years, is often seen as a hobby for older white men. So do you think the RSGB and the amateur radio community as a whole could change that and encourage people from different groups to see it as something not only that they'd enjoy doing, but that they'd feel welcome if they got involved in it?
You've hit the nail on the head regarding the welcome. There's limited amounts what we can do about encouraging people into amateur radio. We try to find them more often; they find us. What we can do is improve when we actually find someone, that we don't accidentally push back on them. We can't do much about getting them there, but we can do a lot about what happens when they arrive. My own XYL holds a foundation license, and she has commented that she does at some clubs, because she comes round with me. She likes the social aspect of amateur radio. That there's this accidental pushback against women. There's nothing major, just old-fashioned talk. I mean, a lot of clubs have an older profile than amateur radio as a whole. Statistics we get from new people coming into amateur radio shows that people are around about 45, 50, empty nesters being a particularly thing. So that's where the majority of amateur radio is. There's nothing new in that. I remember going back to the 1980s when I was first licensed, that's what happened then, and it is exactly the same just now. But as I say, quite happy to have white hair, better than having no hair. As for lack of diversity in the likes of the board, we do try to encourage. Unfortunately, it's not been successful. It is a sometimes high stress job. I use the word job because sometimes that's what it feels like. Other times it's extremely enjoyable. Good crack with our the fellow directors. We do, despite some of the the visions that you see of things, get on very well together, including those that have not stayed with us. And we need to try and find ways so that we do not push back on any group of any association by accidental, making ourselves unpopular. I mean, some of our old terms like XYL and all the bits and pieces, they are seen as old-fashioned, and nowadays we'll have to be a wee bit more mindful of that type of thing.
How important do you think it is for the Society to develop links with external organisations? And if we're thinking about that, in which areas do you think we should develop links, and with whom?
Well, reverting back to your question about promoting amateur radio, and one of the things, again, that we've had to look at, again, via the regional team, is to try and extend, partnerships with things like the Maker Faire, the people are into the robotics, various other groups at, men's sheds. I know it's more, white-haired people, but it's something that's there. Even some of the women's groups, I mean, they're few and far between. It's not just RSGB clubs that are finding difficulties retaining and growing their membership. But they say, have a look at other clubs that have a synergy, not necessarily in electronics or radio. It's just something where we can promote. This is a hobby. It's quite good if you're heading for retirement. But it's one of these things that you can pick up and put down depending on your family. And as I say, promote what we can actually do for them. One of the things that during COVID, we got on the Air to Care campaign, it showed that amateur radio goes beyond what you traditionally think is the benefits of having a hobby.
Some people, and we've touched on this really when we've talked about the white hair, but some people do say that the RSGB should be encouraging youngsters in amateur radio because they're the future, and others say we should focus on marketing amateur radio to some of those people who might be a bit older, who are just getting to the point where they have perhaps a bit more time, the families are getting older, and they have perhaps a bit more disposable income. So which way do you think we should be playing this? What are your views?
I don't think you go one way or the other at all. It is a multifaceted approach to recruitment. We often talk about the likes of youngsters as, the seed corn for the future. You bring them on at a fairly early age, then they discover life, partners, the social side of life. They settle down, and hopefully at some time in the future they will remember that they had an amateur radio license, maybe have more amateur radio disposable funds than what they had when they were younger. I see that as part of them, but I think, to be perfectly honest with you, we have been over-focused in the past with youth. We must include youth at every opportunity, but it should not be our only avenue. The 45ers, as we talked about earlier on, they have traditionally been our happy hunting ground for recruits, and we should not ignore them to go down a youth-only proposition, but youth has to be there as part of the makeup.
As we know, the hobby has developed tremendously in recent years, particularly technologically. So this is a really important question, really, because we've got to look to the future now. And how do you think that amateur radio might develop over the next 5 years?
Well, that's a good one. As if I had that kind of divine sight, I'd be making a fortune on the commodities market, etc. But I mean, amateur radio is a slowly evolving hobby, and you can find its roots all the way back to the spark transmitter. But if they were looking from that time to what we do today, they wouldn't recognise it as such. I can see the likes of digital modes taking a prevalence, particularly to get around problems of interference, etc. But I can still see that the traditional rag tuning is still going to be there, but the method of delivery may change. We have also had a look at various other recently developed technologies, the narrowband high definition TV that some of the community has been using from 146 to 147. That uses technology developed by the amateur radio community, and it shows what can be done with very little bandwidths. And so impressed with Ofcom with that technology that they were asked to do a demonstration to the commercial radio users to show this is what you can do with not a lot if you have the notion to do it. So that is one avenue. I still think CW is going to still play its part. I still think SSB will still play its part. FT8 will still be there, but hopefully it will evolve into something that is more conversational rather than a very strict routine. But it does show what can be done with really cruddy conditions, etc. You can't dismiss it, but I can see that as a particular avenue where you take a technology and expand it to try and make it more amateur radio conversation-like, if that's not a kind of mixed metaphor.
Now, in 2017, the Society launched its strategy for the years up to 2022, so we've passed that milestone. So in which areas do you think the RSGB should be focusing its resources in the next 2 to 3 years?
The strategy 2022 is one area where some people have complaint that we haven't published various results, etc. But if you actually have a look at what those strategies were, and then have a look at what we've actually achieved, we've achieved just every one of these. So having a soft approach to strategy is possibly where we need to be going forward, rather than having this commercial-like, this is our corporate aims, etc. Because I don't think that is particularly works for a volunteer-based organisation. As we talked about earlier on, we are dependent on our volunteers. And a lot of our volunteers want to get on with providing amateur radio. They don't want to do commercial reports, etc. So moving forward with the strategy, I can see that we are looking to protect what we've got from the likes of interference and jamming, to try and expand the profile of amateur radio regarding our mix of people that we have within it. Hopefully we'll still have a significant number of grey and white-haired elderly gentlemen, because I hope not to disappear anytime soon. But we need to have a look at new technologies and see how they can help us do the core activities of amateur radio.
Len, thank you very much for talking to us and telling us a bit about yourself as a candidate.
Thank you very much. You're welcome.